Why would the wisps lead me here?
When we went on our research trip to Scotland, I was trying to infuse my crew with that passion I have for Scotland. I'd been there a few years before, and I just fell in love with it.
There's something else I want to show you. I think it's down
The character
here.
of Scotland has been brilliantly realised because they all went. They didn't look it up in a book. I think they went off to Scotland.
It's really great to be there and breathe the cold, fresh air and have the wind in your face.
Do we need to take 12 artists across the pond and around a country? And what we've learned is not only do you need to, it's critical. We're able to sit and smell it and feel it.
It's good stuff. I really believe that some of the best work you ever do is when you really feel it.
They're going in. Woohoo!
This is bracing!
The landscape in Scotland is epic, it can't help it.
Magnificent. The amount of beautiful scenery in this country that rapidly changes from mile to mile. I'm completely blown away by it.
It has this beautiful, rugged quality, but it has this softness to it, this feminine quality. It just made me want to lie down in the grasses everywhere because there's something growing on everything.
One thing that was really spectacular was the moss on the ground. And you would never know this unless you're actually there, but if you push your hand into it, it would literally sink down about a foot. So we would film that.
It's pretty awesome.
And it just kind of like...
And it has such contrasts. There's sometimes very delicate places where you'll find a little patch of moss, and then suddenly you get these great crags rising out of the green, these huge cliffs clanging down on you, and that fits the story.
And then you'd get to this pasture land, and it would be just bright, bright green.
Something that had really surprised me was how rapidly the landscape changes and how rapidly the weather changes.
The clouds will just cut light shapes across the hillside. You know what I mean? If we were to do it in a movie, it would look unreal.
Everything felt alive, like the clouds were always kind of boiling and the sun was coming through, and you'd be driving along and suddenly shafts of light were coming down on a cottage in a field, and it just felt very kinetic. Everything was kind of in motion or turning into a new thing.
On part of our trip, we went to this place called the Callanish Stones. And it was out in the middle of literally nowhere, just farmland. But it had these stones that were just set up in a very particular way. It is a very quiet place. It feels almost like it's a library or a cathedral that you're in. But it's these very simple stones, and you just kind of sit there and look at them, and they almost feel like they're looking back at you.
They're ancient stones that are 3,000 to 5,000 years old. You could almost feel the personalities. You know that the Vikings stood in front of that, and you know that it goes back even further than that.
There was something very, very striking about being in this place with the wind blowing. We had a sunny day, and you're not quite clear what they were used for. And we were all painting and sitting in the grass and enjoying the weather.
You feel this connection to this ancient period of time and the mystery of it. So that's the stuff you want to convey.
There was always an idea that the Ring of Stones was the center of this universe and where things started, and of the magic in the film.
I asked the shaders to make the lichen gold, so they'll be reflective. So they're in the shapes of lichen, but as the camera moves by or light just hits it, it'll sparkle like diamonds. It'd be nice to get a couple of hue shifts. It's just to create extra variety and interest when we're moving past these stones and moving around these stones. And it creates that feeling of that mystic quality. It makes it feel like a stage. And the stones are somewhat of a stage unto themselves. So just that amount of thought is put into that alone. And we do that on everything we do.
And we want a combination of mostly really strong cliffs like this, but then towards the back we're going to add some of the cliffs that were like the castle you went to that had more...
Dunnottar?
Dunnottar, that
Yeah.
had
That pebbly stuff, yeah.
The great thing about Scotland, particularly for this, is so much of it is still intact. There are castles all over the place.
It's funny to me because I haven't been out of the country, you know. I grew up on cartoons. If I see a real castle at the time, it's like, you know, that's gotta be Disneyland, you know, that's foam, you know, it doesn't seem real.
When you think of castles, you think of the big Disney castle in Disneyland. In Europe, we have real castles, and they've been there for 1,000 years.
What was striking about visiting actual castles is how not grand they were.
Oh, it's just a little room.
The spaces were a lot smaller than you would expect them to be.
I think from the outside, a castle looks very glamorous. It's only until you actually go inside that you realize people lived here. That's got to be awful.
Things were just kind of added on, or they were designed in such a way as an invading force would come in and wouldn't know where they're supposed to go.
Enemies quite often foxed by a bad step and will trip over it. So they started to deliberately put in a bad step. So only, in the dark you'd know where everything was, but your assailant wouldn't necessarily. Right. So a bad step is not just bad stonework, that's deliberate mischief.
Okay.
Right, if you're being attacked, you could come down with your broadsword or whatever, and you'd have it in your right hand.
Secret subterranean chambers undiscovered.
Originally, the castle design was just a freestanding castle surrounded by a wall on top of a hill. We introduced the village within the walls to give it just a little bit more life.
And if this is where the road's gonna go here, let's get another structure over here, and let's get another house in here.
Without a village there, we really didn't get a sense of who King Fergus was protecting. And so with the addition of the village that they ran through, you understood that there was a people that he had, and then it populated the castle.
You wanted to kind of give this area some sort of sense of community.
So you see people walking around doing things. It wasn't like it was an empty castle.
The people of Scotland have this incredible spunkiness to them. They just have this character that comes from living in this incredibly place.
Scots are tough in that way that they play hard. And they, I would think, fight pretty hard. So even their games are about throwing rocks and huge tree trunks. That's their fun, I guess, is to live in a little bit of pain and danger.
They're also very giving and hospitable and friendly people too. I mean, they'll look like this when you first come at them. And then once you say, hi, I'm Mark, and then they go, great to meet you. What do you think of the weather? You know, and they open up and they're friendly.
You want to see my harness collection?
Right now, you're on the moving vehicle. I want you to know that art is happening everywhere.
It was a great bonding experience, man. I mean, it was, you know, I think that's almost the best part about it.
One of our places of lodging, the hotel didn't have enough room for everybody, but they had this little place called the Wee Bunkhouse, which looked like a garage out in the middle of this parking lot.
You open the door and it's a small room with 6 bunk beds.
6 of us guys got in there for one night, and it was a very special time.
Now I know these people. Some of them are quite quiet. Some of them are very, very loud. Mark Andrews.
All right, out! And we all snore, and we all make crazy...
And to get to know them day after day sitting on this bus was just the big treat for me.
So I think that really strengthens the team. When you come back, you have all of these things that you've now experienced that you're trying to put into the film, which I think is incredibly valuable.
We drank from the sacred well.
On that trip, I think the bond was formed with each other and with Scotland, and the idea that this is a very special place, and if we're going to set a story here, we're going to take it very seriously.
There's a real connection with the countryside there. And they addressed the landscape with the story. They said, right, this part of the story will just be right here.
It not only bonded the crew together into a one mind of what this place was, but it also just, everyone fell in love with it and then had a passion for the film in return.
Forest of them highlands all around.
Yeah.
And of course they loved it, as everyone does, because it's the most beautiful country in the world.
I am Merida, firstborn descendant of Clan Dunbroch, and I'll be shooting for my own hand.
What are you doing?
Her voice isn't too far removed from mine. I just sort of amped up the teenage thing that's never quite left. I just had to pretend my mum was in the room. You never really grow out of that in a way. You know, there's nothing that can wind you up like your parents.
Merida's relationship with her mother is inspired by my daughter Emma's relationship with me. We just don't see eye to eye ever, and we fight like cats and dogs. And she does have this incredibly passionate nature that to me is Merida.
The way that I would try to get into Merida is through her skill, was something that she loved very much.
Wow. She's gonna be a strong chick, won't she?
So we did take archery class, and it was really enlightening just to, you know, how do you get good at this?
Focus and flick. Everyone let's go. Shoot, please.
I really wanted Merida's design to be unique. I wanted her to be solid. I wanted her to be an athlete. I wanted her to be like a gymnast, you know, with big, strong legs. You know, they're all muscle under there.
Every artist interprets it in their own way. Purcell will do drawings, I'll do drawings, Brenna did drawings, but the spirit of the character always kind of remained.
She's a little more feral looking in a good way, in a way that I like. Her ears a little bigger, and her face kind of comes out in the front in a cool way, and her hair is always messed up. That was always a character point that Brenda wanted to have.
We want it to be in her face, and we want it to be flying around. We don't want it to look combed. We don't want it to look like she's a princess. We want her to look like, you know, her own person. When we started, we had our original hair simulator, and that was not capable of doing curly hair simulations. It was bouncing way too much.
Hair with that kind of volume and curls, that's a very tricky simulation problem.
Let's dive in. Welcome to Character Sim Review.
There was this one point when we hit a wall with Merida's hair where we were like, this is not gonna work. And it got to a point where it was like, well, maybe Merida needs to have a haircut. And everyone in the room just was like, what? Like, how can you say that?
It would have been a disaster if we had to cut her hair. It is the visual representation of her wild, unruly, free spirit.
It was a great challenge for the crew, and I'm glad they hung in there and really worked out all the kinks of how to get that to look as good as it does.
They click this, and then they can, you know. Now I'm going to show you the actual rig that we put together for animators.
It's really one of the hardest animation problems we solved here.
Without that hair and without all the new technology and tools that enabled us to do that hair, you have a very different character and a very different relationship with her mother.
Merida! Merida! Queen Eleanor is a working mom. She is not this quiet little wife sitting next to her husband. She is the diplomat. She's the one who basically calls the shots.
It's kind of an annoying full-time gig, and you can see that she's made sacrifices.
Eleanor's a really interesting character, I think, because she's the peacemaker. She's a lot of the brains behind the operation.
She's a queen, and she was born into it, so she's been brought up. But you know that way back, she was quite feisty.
Her hair is perfectly braided, and then her dress is beautiful.
But it feels somewhat a little heavy. She's holding the burden of the kingdom on her shoulders.
We were painting these little gold leaf designs on it, which made for a really beautiful, rich feel for Eleanor?
She's contained. Her dress is fitted, her hair is pulled back, she doesn't gesture, she holds it in tight. Whereas Merida is just all over the place. I wanted Merida to have a dress where she could just do her archery and gesture when she's angry and, shovel the horse stuff and just do what she needs to do.
The intent of Merida's dress, her hero dress that she wears throughout most of the film, is that she designed it herself.
Where it's tight here, but there's loose cloth for movement for her elbows, and it's a historic design.
Give us a turn. Oh, I can't move.
I worked in a sequence where Eleanor puts a dress on Merida, and Merida's totally not liking it.
She's wearing a corset underneath. She's restricted. It physically changes the shape of her body. So it's someone physically trying to force her to be someone else.
When I was trying to figure out the acting in these shots, I used my personal experiences with my own mother and the argument and the struggle we go through. The most important thing for me is to show how Eleanor really wants to speak to her daughter. She really wants to tell her, it's gonna be okay. You might hate this now, but you're gonna thank me later. But she just can't find the words.
Just remember to smile.
I think the dress symbolizes her being an adult.
Merida rebels, runs away from her problems. The dress gets more and more torn up and gets dirt on it and just starts to fall apart. And it's her state of mind. She's so upset she doesn't know what to do with herself. And that's how she can get to a state where she asks a witch to put a spell on her own mom.
There's massive consequences to what she does.
Merida realizes, oh my God, I've done this to my mother. I was so wrong to be this selfish. I really need my mom in my life because she is a source of my strength.
I think for me, the most amazing moment is when they work together and Merida gets to grow up, but it's through a collaboration with her mother.
I've decided to do what's right. And
they have to learn to listen to each other. So when mom can't speak anymore, that's when Merida realizes she has to pay attention. And then when Merida is out there trying to save mom's life, that's when mom realizes she has to pay attention.
What I love about the film is how her vulnerability starts to come through when she's transformed.
The bear, if you're looking at the bear as a sort of archetype which represents a human emotion, it's this rage. There's part of me was playing it as though Eleanor was almost released by becoming a bear, because she's like anybody else. There's rage and anger in her too.
In the story, it turns out to be the kind of scary creature ends up to be like the ultimate protector of her daughter. So in the final moments of the movie, we see mom, she's willing to give her life for her daughter like any mom would, but in this case it's personified by a enormous black bear.
I think Merida realizes the shocking fact that she's just like her mum.
What's not to like about Merida? She's not brave at first. She's headstrong at first, and she's wild, and she's fierce, and she's passionate, but she's not brave till the end. You have to be afraid of losing something to be brave.
Merida has a lot of what my daughter Emma has, which is this fire for life. As time goes on, I realize this amazing thing about my daughter, and Eleanor sees that in Merida, that she's gonna make this amazing queen one day. I can write a happy ending for Merida and Mom, and I'm sure we'll have one too.
Bears have been done a lot in animation. I mean, if you think about bears and mice, they've been done like more than anything. In that way, I was like, oh man, how are you gonna do something different?
We wanted to make sure that you could buy that this is a real bear and, you know, it can actually do real harm to you if it chose to.
They are very realistic. These are not, I want your picnic basket bears.
The bear, if you're looking at the bear as a sort of archetype which represents a human emotion, it's this rage. There's part of me was playing it as though Eleanor was almost released by becoming a bear, because she's like anybody else.
So the bear research has been far-reaching. We've dived deep. We've gone to the zoo and looked at lots of different types of bears: polar bears, grizzly bears, Kodiak bears.
When Eleanor turns into a bear, we call her Mum Bear.
She's a real bear. Like, she's not gonna talk. She's not gonna have cartoony eyes.
She just turned into this fresh, perfect bear. So Mum Bear has these almost impossibly perfect bear features.
The character design kind of reflects this elegance that is Eleanor.
The challenge with Mum Bear specifically is that she was this massive bear, but she had to be sleek.
You want the sense that there are muscle masses moving and flexing underneath the skin, even though the skin may be loose, but you still want to feel that the fat is sort of sliding around.
She almost looks like a mink. There's not a lot of stray hairs on her, and she just looks very luxurious.
She's still gonna try to behave like Mom. She's gonna walk on two legs, and she's gonna try to hold up her skirt with this fur, and she's what she does habitually, and have this dignity, but it's gonna be kind of ridiculous in this bear body.
Once the spell takes over, she goes from a human in a bear suit with the bear anatomy to an actual bear.
One of our rules that we would try to do is anytime that Mom was conscious as Mom would be standing, and once she became more bear-like, she would actually be on the ground on all fours.
We have the head hanging much lower when she's an actual bear. And then when she's Eleanor on all fours, you know, we raise it to almost neutral, maybe even slightly higher at times.
To sell that Eleanor is inside of this character, the eyes were the window into her soul.
We retained like the color of Eleanor's eyes in the bear.
We get to play with when they become human or when they become bear-like.
By changing the posing of the eyes, changing the scale of the iris and pupil, it goes from Eleanor as a bear to a bear.
The relationship with Merida and the bear is, so dependent on her ability to express her emotion on her face.
Sorry, I don't speak bear.
And so what I tried to do is create a groom, especially around the eyebrows, that would help pick the specular response up so that you could see when those eyebrows moved.
The amount of brow shapes that we're using when she's an actual bear is a lot more limited. You know, we're still using it and pushing it for expression, but it's mostly like anger and then relaxed.
Mum, not now. Please, not now.
We realize that this effect, if it's not reversed, is going to go on forever, and Mom will end up the same way Mordu did.
If we don't hurry, you'll become like Mordu, a real bear, forever. Mordu.
We had a character called the Great Black, and he was this huge bear. But when we went to Scotland, we were finding out Gaelic words, what they meant. So Mordu literally means Great Black.
Mark wanted a really, really scary bear.
This is not a bear, right? It's a monster. A mutant troll bear werewolf giant hybrid if they all had baby together.
He has the bear body, but his shape, like the wide shoulders and the small hips, are not really bear-like.
He's tighter, he's more taut, tense, his muscle, there's less body fat.
Mordu is what you can become if you were wholly selfish and cared for no one else.
He's got no energy, but he's a killing machine. So I just want to be able to get those teeth out and see that jaw like hanging. It'd be awesome.
He's been around for like centuries, perhaps. No one knows. So we put spears in his back.
He's just this dark soul that's kind of buried inside this bear shape.
I don't think it's Lopi like a bear. We got to treat it like the alien, predator. It has a form of corrupted intelligence. It's like gone past what it's actually turned into. I mean, it's a cursed thing.
He had been attacked earlier in his life, and his hair had been burned away. It's very scarred. So I had to design the hair to work around those areas that were hairless and kind of make the direction reflect the brutality that had become him. He's so mangy and dirty, and even though he's very ferocious and the villain, I always just really felt sorry for Mondu.
We wanted to have something that felt very threatening. Their claws are very long. Their anatomy is very real. But they are not cartoony bears that you would like to encounter.
You wanna laugh, huh? We Dingwall!
She's all, you wanna laugh, eh? You wanna laugh? We Dingwall! And then the guy's all, and then all of a sudden, Dingwall's in the air and lands on him and is going, I love making fights in movies. It's a necessary element in dramatics. As you know, things have really broken down when a scuffle starts.
What's fun about doing a fight in a movie is it can be as broad and nutty as you want it to be, and all the gags are very physical. And so you're just trying to make yourself laugh when you think of each bit of it.
Also, just as a dynamic action, it's dynamic. It's entertaining. It's better than watching somebody paint a fence.
The initial fight, which is just with fists, is a little more jovial. I don't think you would call it sparring by modern standards in terms of mixed martial arts and such. This is more barroom brawl.
Anytime the three lords are together, they're like the crazy uncles, and there's always something that gets them going at each other.
I heard that. Aye, say it to my face.
So our crazy fight includes biting, slapping, shield slamming, table bashing, body slamming. I mean, it's all over the map.
My favorite moment in the early fight is the sheep flying through the air.
Even more flailing.
You're supposed to be laughing, like you're laughing at the fight. And the one thing you realize was if you oversell the hit as the receiving person, and how you oversell that can make it funny.
It's not necessarily hard to make a character punch another character. It's more hard to make when a character gets punched, to make sure that you can see the effect of that punch.
So if I'm like, and then it's like, that just overselling the idea like that is better, will make people laugh.
If you go frame by frame, you'll see some very, very ridiculous looking shapes.
It's tricky. We need to make sure there's a lot of sparring, parrying, but nothing too violent. That being said, if a sword does accidentally go through a character, it's easier for us to deal with it than real people.
As much fun as fights are to include in the movie, we want them to have a reason as well. So in the first fight, even though it's very broad and silly, we wanted to show what would happen in this world when you take Mom out of the equation. But it doesn't take much to set them off.
No more talk, no more traditions. We settle this now.
So I'm back to the castle, and this time it's not a fist fight anymore.
When the stakes are very high, when the kingdom is at risk of falling apart, swords are drawn.
Now it's weapons involved, and there's arrows flying and shields stopping and things like that.
This means war.
So knowing Mark, when it came to a lot of the fighting stuff, it's totally in his DNA, and he likes it. So we had to make sure that it was real for him.
So one thing I started doing early on was just training the animators in how to hold a sword. So it's about building up momentum. It's momentum. Okay, that's what I want you to do. Everybody goes like this. Ha! As hard as you can, okay? There you go. Feel that momentum? Then the next step up from that was actually to choreograph the fights.
Mark loves to choreograph fights, especially with swords. He loves to plan these things out with beautiful movements.
Oh, you're down.
We would practice these routines quite a bit, specifically using the swords that are in the movie. He actually choreographed the Fergus fight that you see at the beginning. Mark had a bunch of us out there when he was playing Fergus. It comes definitely in handy for the animators.
And that goes into what we do at Pixar all the time. It's research, 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 research. So if you're going to do a fight, you're going to have to fight.
Get back! That's my mother!
This confrontation where Merida comes in and Fergus is just about to kill Mom Bear is the highest stakes in the movie because she doesn't really want to hurt her father. But she will do whatever it takes so that he doesn't hurt her mother. And I think that's a key in storytelling because we're always trying to raise the stakes and worry about these characters.
What The Brawl in the Hall does for us in our film is it shows that the kingdom can go into chaos at any moment.
And it's that kind of movie. It's that kind of action-adventure tale. And the fighting is a requirement of that kind of a story.
You wanna laugh, huh? We Dingwall!
She's all, you wanna laugh, eh? You wanna laugh? We Dingwall! And then the guy's all, and then all of a sudden Dingwall's in the air and lands on him and is going, I love making fights in movies. It's a necessary element in dramatics. As you know, things have really broken down when a scuffle starts.
What's fun about doing a fight in a movie is it can be as broad and nutty as you want it to be, and all the gags are very physical. And so you're just trying to make yourself laugh when you think of each bit of it.
Also, just as a dynamic action, it's dynamic. It's entertaining. It's better than watching somebody paint a fence.
The initial fight, which is just with fists, is a little more jovial. I don't think you would call it sparring by modern standards in terms of mixed martial arts and such. This is more barroom brawl.
Anytime the three lords are together, they're like the crazy uncles, and there's always something that gets them going at each other.
I have that. Aye, say it to my face.
So our crazy fight includes biting, slapping, shield slamming, table bashing, body slamming. I mean, it's all over the map.
My favorite moment in the early fight is the sheep flying through the air.
Even more flailing.
You're supposed to be laughing, like you're laughing at the fight. And the one thing you realize was if you oversell the hit as the receiving person, and how you oversell that can make it funny.
It's not necessarily hard to make a character punch another character. It's more hard to make when a character gets punched to make sure that you can see the effect of that punch.
So if I'm like, you know, and then it's like, you know, that just overselling the idea like that is better, is like, will make people laugh.
If you go frame by frame, you'll see some very, very ridiculous looking shapes.
It's tricky. We need to make sure there's a lot of sparring, parrying, but nothing too violent. That being said, if a sword does accidentally go through a character, it's easier for us to deal with it than real people.
As much fun as fights are to include in the movie, we want them to have a reason as well. So in the first fight, even though it's very broad and silly, we wanted to show what would happen in this world when you take Mom out of the equation. But it doesn't take much to set them off.
No more talk, no more traditions. We settle this now.
So I'm back to the castle, and this time it's not a fist fight anymore.
When the stakes are very high, when the kingdom is at risk of falling apart, swords are drawn.
Now it's weapons involved, and there's arrows flying and shields stopping and things like that.
This means war.
So knowing Mark, when it came to a lot of the fighting stuff, it's totally in his DNA and he likes it. So we had to make sure that it was real for him.
So one thing I started doing early on was just training the animators in how to hold a sword. So it's about building up momentum. It's momentum. Okay, that's what I want you to do. Everybody goes like this. Ha! As hard as you can, okay? There you go. Feel that momentum? Then the next step up from that was actually to choreograph the fights.
Mark loves to choreograph fights, especially with swords. He loves to plan these things out with beautiful movements.
Oh, you're down.
We would practice these routines quite a bit, specifically using the swords that are in the movie. He actually choreographed the Fergus fight that you see at the beginning. Mark had a bunch of us out there and he was playing Fergus. It comes definitely in handy for the animators.
And that goes into what we do at Pixar all the time. It's research, 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 research. So if you're gonna do a fight, you're gonna have to fight.
Get back! That's my mother!
This confrontation where Merida comes in and Fergus is just about to kill Mom Bear is the highest stakes in the movie because she doesn't really want to hurt her father. But she will do whatever it takes so that he doesn't hurt her mother. And I think that's a key in storytelling because we're always trying to raise the stakes and worry about these characters.
What The Brawl in the Hall does for us in our film is it shows that the kingdom can go into chaos at any moment.
And it's that kind of movie. It's that kind of action-adventure tale. And the fighting is a requirement of that kind of a story. Brave happens in Scotland. Scotland is very rich in all the shapes and the colors it has. It's dense, it's beautiful, it's magical. The art director wanted to see the real Scotland on the screen. He wanted to see the moss, the trees, the rocks, all this richness. And that was the main challenge for this movie, to get all this organic feel into the screen. We did all that by using mathematics. Most people think of mathematics as something boring and mechanical, but that's not the way we see mathematics at Pixar. For us, maths are a tool to create images, movement, richness, and fun, actually. A computer-generated movie, it's really a series of images, a lot of frames one after the other. And all these images are made of pixels. There is up to 1 or 2 million pixels per image. So each of these pixels is described by 3 different numbers, which specify the red, green, and blue colors for that pixel. So all colors in every single pixel are these 3 numbers. So for us to make a film, we have to direct almost 200 billion pixels. And that's a lot of mathematics. Go, go, go! One of the places where you really see the math in action in the movie, that's on the moss. When we first started designing the movie, we decided we would have a lot of moss everywhere. So we took a lot of reference images from Scotland, and we started analyzing how the moss looks like. Look at that, look at that. How it grows on the rocks, on the trees, and we tried to recreate all that by using mathematics and numbers. So this is how it was done. We started with some very, very simple maths and formulas, which would create a very simple version of the moss. So the first thing we did was to cover everything in a very uniform moss. But because we really wanted to see a lot of variation on the moss, like color variation, variation on the shapes, we needed to have different lengths and thicknesses. So we realized we would have to drop more mathematics into the computer. For example, we have one formula which takes care of the thickness of the moss. We have another formula which takes care of the color, another one for the bending,
And the movement is also done with mathematics. And when you put them all together, it looks like a huge formula, a huge monster. However, none of the steps is really complex. Every one of these small formulas are very simple, actually. To make the Scottish forest, we didn't only need moss. We needed trees and bushes and flowers. We decided to take the same approach for all of them. So we went mathematics for all of them. And we had mathematical trees, mathematical flowers, and formulas flowing everywhere. So basically, we are using maths as a brush, as an artistic tool. And that's very cool, I think.